All right. Okay. Welcome, everybody, to Governance Conversation. My name is Sebastian Bor. I work for Solana Dev Labs as a developer, and we are going to talk today about decentralized autonomous organizations. And DAO or not to DAO, this is not the question. We know it's DAO. We know this is the way. The question is why. And this is why we brought you this bright panel of engineers and entrepreneurs who are going to share with you their knowledge and experience with building DAO. So please welcome. If you want to go from zero to hero, this is your man, Karon Schaller, Hero Launch DAO. Please welcome. Alex Migutko from Unique, Clubs, Words, and watch this, Evolving Universe NFTs. Welcome. And last but not least, Kyle Kado, former Jigstack, and now Polium. He brings lots of experience with him, so watch what this man has to say, because he has lots of tricks in his sleeves. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, so we know we want DAOs, right? But the question is, before we have the DAOs, how do we create them? So Karon, can you share with us how easy or difficult is it to create DAO on Solana?
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. So DAOs have been proliferating lately, especially on other blockchains, and now Solana is taking root more and more. And on other chains, we have solutions like Aragon that are enabling toolkits for DAOs. And I expect some of that to come out soon on Solana, so it makes it easier. Other solutions like Squads enable on Solana to create small DAOs for small organizations, small friends groups even, to share a common interest. It's all in all, it's just wonderful, all the things that are coming out. And especially you are in the midst of it, building the Solana DAO infrastructure, basically, right?
Yes, that's correct. I'm building tools to create DAOs. Okay, Kara, what's your experience on Solana?
Yeah, so there are plenty of examples of little snippets you can already use to do voting on Solana, like less than 50 lines of code. So in order to build a DAO, you don't need much further than that, and it's just a question of how deep you want to go. And I think like just the efficiency and scalability brought by Solana really enables for democratic and generalistic governance to be implemented in an easy way. So I think it's pretty easy. If you guys want to do it, we can do it after the conference. It's
okay. Everybody is invited. We can even start our own DAO for this panel, and everybody can join. We will have a token too. Alex?
Well, yeah, definitely. It's much easier in some sense to build, on Solana all those things, and that allows us, to go to other questions and to go deeper into the whole topic, like why and what exactly do we expect from DAO, right? Because we can do voting simply enough, but what can we do more than that? Where can we go beyond voting? I guess that's something that Solana actually embraces us to ask.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, because I think that experience to creating a DAO is relatively simple right now with Solana, but I think really what matters what happens after that. Really, you get excited, you get your adrenaline flowing, and then your dopamine goes down, and now what? And now I think this is the big challenge. So how can we take our DAOs to the next level? So I mean, Alex, what's your approach with clubs? How to engage community to participate? How to engage really people you don't know to work towards a common goal?
Well, I have most of my experience basically coming from game development and especially MMORPGs. And that's one of the questions that also happens there a lot of times, like because we have guilds, we have this whole social interaction going on, and so there's always a question: how do you actually engage more people into that? And the question is, you don't. Most of people will never care about those things, no matter what you offer, no matter what incentives you bring to the table. And then there's going to be your core community, basically core contributors, whatever. Like it happens everywhere in the absolutely the same manner, who are going to actually create the most important parts, vote on the most important things, propose the most important things for the entire community, and then there are going to be 9% of people actually participate in it at some degree. 90% never going to care about pretty much anything happening. Mm-hmm. And I guess it's much better to accept it as a reality and build from there. And say, okay, let me focus on those components for people who are actually, who are the most active ones, who are creating the value, right? Because they will need the tools, okay. Not the 90%. So let's go from there and see what they need. Let's talk to them on a daily level. Let's create for them, create this experience that will allow them to actually create this value for the rest of the community who doesn't care, but which is still there, participating in some form by just being there. That's already
okay. So is that the role of curator?
In our case, yes, it's a role of curator of the club, leader of the club, whoever, somebody who is who has experience, who has expertise and understanding what he's doing in terms of collecting NFTs and all these things. And so we are giving them a lot of tools, obviously, and we help them focus on the ownership aspect of the DAO in general, because it's not that generalistic on one hand, but on the other hand gives a lot of road ahead as well.
Okay, so. Karan, is it the same concept for Hero Launch DAO, where you have those managers who really have hands-on managing? Is it the same, or you're trying to solve the same problems?
Well, yeah, we are. So we're trying to solve it by breaking a DAO up into different user groups and taking the voting mechanism away from a single token, and instead having multiple different incentivization mechanisms backed by to run these coordination games. I would have a question for Alex. If you are focusing on the core contributors, do you then not sideline potential contributors that want to come in at a later point? How do you make sure that you are still acting, still enabling everybody to participate like a DAO was envisaged, while still focusing on the core contributors, like you were saying? Because I do think they are the very most important ones.
I guess that's again, it's something you see in every social group. The dynamics of it would be pretty much the same, because you have vertical and horizontal basic expansion, right? So there are some people within the group who can just move up in the hierarchy, let's say, and then they would become also contributors, probably moving from 90% to 9% and then probably to 1% within this particular DAO. Or that it can be a horizontal expansion where people leave some DAO because they collected enough experience, they have a different vision potentially, or different area of interest. So they go out to create their own DAO, right? And that's how this expertise, keep growing across the whole industry or bigger community and so on. Mm-hmm. So that's at least that's what you usually see in social groups.
All right. So it feels like we have to take some divide and conquer approach, right, Kawo? This is how we can do it. Because I can imagine that. I have a large company with, let's say, 1 million employees, and all of them, we are going to each of them to ask to vote on every single decision, right? So how we can solve this by dividing and conquering to smaller DAOs?
Yeah, exactly. So DAOs envision kind of to divide and conquer by distributing power and influence overall in a fair manner. So as you said, if you have millions of representatives, it's pretty tough to, do the math and make it fair in the end. So what really needs to be done is make people feel like their voices are being heard and they are being represented overall, because we're we're like a small bubble still in crypto. So our profile is very similar, especially here. We're all engineers, and there are some people that are way more vocal, and some people that, you know, they have a lot of money or influence inside, but they're just delegating power and so on. So when you split that, it really makes it more manageable. And even those people who are active members of the community, but maybe they're not so vocal or, you know, just voting too much, they are still represented. And in order for this underlying infrastructure to work, those smaller DAOs also need to be interconnected and just communicate with one another. And because people don't want to be, you know, just muffled and feel like they are being isolated from the rest of the ecosystem too. And that is like the larger challenge on that. So, and this is the good thing about being on Solana too, because we're all still early and we have this room to talk, and it's not really creating another DAO is not really fragmenting your community or your ecosystem if you are communicating, if you are working together to achieve something. So if you have this kind of conversation and this room to work together alongside one another, and, you know, if the underlying infrastructure, the system itself is also being tracked, you know, horizontally, as Alex was saying, then I think it's a more sustainable way of scaling up DAOs.
All right, so what's possible? Is it even possible right now that we have to balance, like, on one extreme, we have to protect DAO's money, right? Let's say, imagine we have a huge treasury account with billions of dollars, and so for certainly we don't want this to be easily taken from the DAO. But on the other hand, we want the company to be flexible. So what do you think we can do about that? I mean, how would you envision that we have these large coffers, but then also we want to be flexible and want to, as you said, everybody from the community to be involved. So, any ideas how you are solving these problems in Hero Launch DAO?
So for this problem, I think it's a question of how much risk do you want to take versus flexibility. So if you have a custodian, a treasurer, if you may, for the treasury of a DAO, who's delegated by all the other DAO members, they choose one, then it's very flexible, one person making the decision, but also very risky. If you add a couple more people, it'll become less risky, less flexible, and you got to find that sweet spot of how flexible do you need it in your. So it's not a one-size-fits-all parameter, in my opinion. You pick how many treasurers do you want for the level of safety that you require, depending on the size of your treasury and depending on what it's needed for.
So you essentially have to balance the risk versus the flexibility, right? Because you cannot have both. Yeah, that's the way. And like we are talking about NFTs of gaming, do you, Alex, find the same issues there, or you think that you are facing totally different world or different challenges than what we are talking about? For example, investment DAOs, where you invest somebody else's money.
Well, in the end of the day, from my experience, what gaming-related DAOs are essentially guilds that you can find like in any game, basically, especially in MMORPGs. And then the question of ownership and treasury management and vault management becomes actually very important, because especially if it's like a top guild, usually on in the game or on the server or whatever, it can have extremely valuable items that were obtained because of the common effort of the entire guild, right? And now, how do you manage this? Well, if somebody wants to leave the guild, right? How do you balance those things? Do you really want your guild leader to have an ultimate authority over this whole value that is stored somewhere? Usually you have to do it because in the end of the day we all say, okay, it's a game, it's just like imaginary value, it's just a bunch of pixels. But with even back then we all knew it's not really. It does have a lot of monetary value. Actually, you can sell this stuff for a lot of money. With NFTs being
okay, so let me stop you there. So you are saying that you can have your DAO, which you called a guild, in the game, and that guild also exists in the real world?
Well, basically, yeah. I mean, it's the same. It's the same mechanics, same dynamics. Is in the end of the day, it's the same for I don't know, people collecting art together, or a game guild, or a company like where we are, like, 3 co-founders, for example. It's the same problem of management. Controlling the value, our common assets, and distributing the roles again across ourselves. Because in the end of the day, like you were saying, maybe I'm not the best person to judge on our marketing expenses. And you might want to be the best person to judge on new developer hire, because we just don't have the same experience. But we do want to have some influence over those spendings. So creating those different roles, creating those different permissions, maybe is one of the ways to actually manage the whole DAO. But probably we don't know yet.
All right. So, but I think really crucial for, at least for games, is the immersion of the UI. So it doesn't feel like proposals and decision process. But on the other hand, sometimes you need a structure, right? And I think like Jigstack, I think they really got it right. Can you tell us more about that, about the user experience and the quality of the UI that's needed?
Yeah, sure thing. So our proposal was to bring your grammar to DeFi in general, so anyone can just join, and you don't really have to know approve here, go there, and do this whole crypto native that for us is pretty simple, but in order for crypto to reach the next step, it's pretty tough. So for people that are older or they're just outside, who don't really give a damn that much to be on that daily loop. So putting that all under this flow of this friendly UX overall was really important, and it's just down to getting the tech right and getting the integrations right as well. So once you have this kind of basic framework / blueprint across one product, you can kind of scale that alongside the rest of them, and then it's way more welcoming. And this is one thing that's doing some off-chain governance, things that happen more on EVM networks. It's not that friendly like snapshot.org. Like you need to go back and forth, and this kind of just filters down your engagement to the last bit of people that are really, really engaged, and that's not something you want. So this is the real power of on-chain governance, being accessible for everyone and being committed directly there. And yeah, it also paves the way of way more experimentation down the line.
Yeah, I really agree. I think that makes a huge difference. Where if you compare Snapshot to what we have on Solana, where Snapshot is essentially off-chain voting. So there have been cases where community voted one way, and then the maintainers refused to actually execute that action. So I think there is a conflict. Why? Because we can leverage the speed and price of Solana. We can have the whole governance really on chain. So once the decision is made, once the community votes, that becomes the law, because part of the proposal is executable instruction that you can actually execute. And I think that that really brings the speed and cost of Solana really brings lots to the table. And probably for the UI as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because you can actually engage users in the experience, right?
And the influence process as well, and what weights are you using? So things like DXDAO, they have this very specific for them, that they have this kind of token tracker that is specific for a person, and over time, if you're not contributing to the DAO yet, like this really drops, so it keeps it fresh and so on. You can do such things on snapshot.org, and if you have this stale framework that only has a few options for you to choose from, it's very likely it's not going to fit your community. So that flexibility and what Solana is doing to empower future DAOs and future developers is really important, because it's not one size fits all. Period. Yeah. It's not.
Yeah, and I think that's also important thing, that we have to go beyond token voting, right? We have to find different ways, like reputation scores. So, is there anything like that in Hero Launch DAO that you can just vote with not your with a token that has economic value?
Yeah, so I'll talk about this after this panel, but I'm very much in favor of modeling on-chain governance after traditional governance. And in traditional companies, you don't have shareholders making all the decisions either. People don't buy the shares to make every little decision in the governance process. They elect a board, and the board chooses some managers and whatnot, and they decide all of the day-to-day business stuff. And then once a year, maybe all the shareholders come together and make a couple of important decisions. And that's how I think on-chain governance should work too. And it should be more merit-based. And like you said, with reputation and how and where it tracks it within one DAO, how much you are committing, how much you're contributing, and then you get rewarded with more voting power as a result.
Yeah. That I think this is exactly how we also thinking about this. Because in the SPL governance program, we have the concept of the council. So a council is like a small DAO inside the large DAO. So essentially, this divide and conquer strategy that you divide your large DAO and you essentially focus the decision making to smaller groups that can make the decision more effectively. Because I mean, what can happen if the whole community has to vote on a critical security upgrade, right? We know what can happen, right? You have to upgrade instantaneous, right? You cannot have vote open in the air for a week while people are stealing your money, and it has happened on other chains.
You don't want to name names?
No.
It was recent.
So, okay, so let's imagine that we are successful, right? That we create lots of those DAOs, and everybody of us is going to end up with hundreds of them. How are we going to manage that? Alex, do you have some ideas? Because Unique creates lots of DAOs, right? So potentially anybody who gets, emerged, gets inside Unique can have like a lots of those DAOs. How do you manage the problem that, are those people are going to really vote? Are they going to participate? How to keep the engagement? How to fight what I call the governance fatigue?
Yeah, well, again, I don't believe that they're actually going to actually participate in all of the DAOs where they have a stake in, effectively. My biggest hope is basically that through this process we'll also create more curators, more collectors, and by this we will grow the professional level of the market in general. I guess that applies to any other type of communities of this kind, let's say, that are focused on ownership or business or something like that. We want to grow more new leaders, right? That's what decentralization is all about in the end of the day. So that's our approach to that.
Okay, so Carl, do you think more people will be voting by themselves, or they will be delegating and asking others to do the jobs?
Well, if you're in an organization and you're, vertically in a higher level, it's very likely that your opinion matters in not one squad, but multiple as well. So this is a really scalable way to think of it, in the end, because you can delegate, like Alex was saying, maybe I'm not good in marketing, but sometimes they need my opinion. So I can delegate there, but really focus my active contribution on somewhere I'm building something that's more important, and my skills are put to best practice. While I think most of them, statistically, are going to be delegated because that's always how it is. But over time, we don't really know. It's all about experimenting, and just this intercommunication is really important. And standardization is about that. It's not about just limiting what you can do. It's just about putting together a common framework that those DAOs can communicate with one another, maybe transact voting power, maybe transact members, but not really capping their creativity and their ability to evolve over time, because that's what kills a DAO, not evolving over time.
Yeah, that's. I think this is I think most of the DAOs are learning that, we created our DAO, it's all fine, but then, nobody wants to vote, and really governance becomes a chore, and it's not that fun any longer, right? So I even imagine that in the future we can see a professional governors, that their job will be to actually govern protocols, right? Because if I had a cool protocol, like Mango, and I wanted to govern this. Why do I have to do this myself? why I can hire somebody who knows. Because because on one hand, this is cool because the proposal is about executable instruction, but on the other hand, can everybody really verify that the instruction of the proposal does what it says? And you have to be very careful, right? Because the instructions will be executed, right? So definitely, I think there's going to be need for people who actually will be doing this professionally. What do you think about that idea?
Well, sometimes I think in this world we're just rebuilding everything that already exists beforehand, and this very much feels like you're talking about politicians.
Yeah.
Because that's what they do professionally. Professionally, they're there to vote.
I didn't want to say the P word, but...
Yeah, but like, old-style politics, like probably something that we really romanticized in terms of, ancient Greece and stuff like that, where, people who were really dedicating their life to politics in a way like, it's a philosophy of how do you manage the, the state. So it's very close to what you're saying in the end of the day. And I guess one of the things that you mentioned is really important as well, like, this standardization of approach to DAOs, just like Metaplex, this standardization of approach to NFTs on Solana, maybe that's something that should be considered as well. Like and all the people that are working on DAO-related and governance-related things to come together and have a common opinion on that.
Yeah, so I mean that's really the goal and vision of SPL governance program, to provide the core framework to build any kind of DAOs, so they can communicate with each other. We can create DAOs of DAOs, or like DAO to DAO business model. So I really think if we can get this core, that I think it will open like a lot of possibilities and really possibilities for explorations and innovation. Right. So we have like 4 minutes left. Are there any questions from the audience? No? Okay, then I will just use this time, for our panelists so they can tell you about their projects and what they're currently working on. So, Karen?
Yeah, I'll go into it later. Right now, I just wanted to say, following up on your point and Alex's words, that we do need to have something standardized and to move forward with, so that we can build upon that in the future. And the issue is that in our world, everything moves so quickly that we need all the input we can get in how to develop this standard now, before things have moved past it and people are using all sorts of different things that aren't interconnecting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So input is welcome.
Yeah, I mean, we will be available for discussion. Even if you want, we can create DAOs for you after the panel. Carl?
Yeah, awesome. I'll follow Carol's lead. I will present about the company a little later. But yeah, talking about this is really important, this standardization. And, about this politics thing, we're talking about governance. So it's pretty tough to avoid that overall. And this is the big, 10 years from now, it might be the new way, even countries are run, in decentralized governance. And we kind of have a bit of a stigma still in crypto. We're really development focused still. Like the CEO is a coder, everyone's a dev, and we're now starting to segment into that. NFTs really did a lot for just make it more democratic and more, people are more heterogeneous overall in crypto right now. So I totally believe that sometimes we'll have crypto politicians, just governors, and people who know how community works and community building and the organization as well. And if they're good at doing that, why not just segment their participation in the DAO to what they're really good at? So,
but that's an opportunity, right? We just enabling wannabe politicians, right? Who would never have a chance to be a politician in the real world.
Yeah, and if they wouldn't be transparent, wouldn't be really auditable. It wouldn't be like doing decentralized governance. So this is the evolution of human-to-human interaction in power dynamics. So why not? Yeah.
Sounds cool.
Because in the end of the day, I guess we hate current politics because it turned into popularity contests instead of actually people presenting their skill at governance, which can happen, if we develop a proper framework.
Yeah, because we can measure this, right?
Yeah.
Because if you propose proposals that are accepted by the community, you gain some scores, like reputation score, and that can be measured, and that gives you more power. If you propose proposals which are rejected, then you are not a good politician, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and there might be some breakthroughs on that, on the way that we're tracking, this score, this fixed score, non-transferable with this economic power, some mixture of that might work. And we just might adopt that as a new standard and build upon that. So it's all about just keep experimenting and keep on coding, keep on cryptoing.
Yeah, we have to keep exploring, definitely, because as I said, we know how to create DAOs. We kind of know how to manage them, but I think still we need ideas and explorations how to go to the next step so they really can perform and are not like chores, and they really, really can serve their purpose. All right, thank you guys, and big welcome. Thank you for my panelists.
Thank you.